Yeah, how are you, sir?
Nice haircut, Ron.
How's that baby? He's good. He's getting sleepy. I
Hey,
just
Dad.
had to put him down.
Strange.
So,
That's a little cowboy.
sleeping right now. He just slept.
That's all they do, man. They eat.
Falls asleep.
That's what they do. That's what you
First.
Somebody changing your diapers to post. Not like a Florida.
Right. It's close. Time being 6 o'clock, I'd like to open the regular schedule or special calls council meeting of Monday, April 1st, 2024. We are going to immediately go into executive session. We will come back out and after that at 7 o'clock, I will go into the regular agenda. And that's when we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. And so the council will go into recess for a minute and we will reconvene into executive session at 6:01. Oh, wait, I gotta read why.
Oh, now you do.
I apologize. Excuse me, apologize. My bad. So the town council will go into executive session. The town council shall convene into a closed executive session pursuant to section 551-071, the Texas Government Code, to seek legal advice from the town attorney regarding the development plan and subdivision compliance for property being developed in the town's jurisdiction and extraterritorial jurisdiction. Number two, the town shall convene into a closed executive session pursuant to section 551-071 of the Texas Government Code to seek legal advice from the town attorney concerning annexation or de-annexation of ETJ property and legal advice regarding agreement with Morningstar Development LLC. Number three, the town council shall convene into a closed executive session pursuant to section 551-071 of the Texas Government Code to seek legal advice from the town attorney regarding zoning issues and possible land use with the town center zoning district.
I talked to Steve earlier.
Yes, sir. Show you. Right away.
Executive session, we will open up at 7 o'clock with the pledge of allegiance.
That's not good. He's doing it also from in 2005. I have been in seeing the 5 series park down here.
What?
Yeah, and. I was
thinking about that when I'm talking to you.
That's like, probably is. She said, "You don't need to just drop you off." Get a ride, man.
It's such a power to get that fixed. It's like, if it's gonna do it, call it.
You know why I added that to the garage was because they had hired them. Somebody had a car.
You got some cars. I need to wait till something.
Time being 7 o'clock, I'd like to re-adjourn, to convene into regular session of council from executive session. If you'd all please stand, face the flag and repeat after.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, next item of business is there is no action from executive session. We will go to the next item, which is public input. Anyone during the public input phase of the council meeting may speak on an agenda or non-agenda item for a period of 3 minutes. If the person needs additional time, that may be granted by consensus of council. First person to speak on is Ted Ramsey. There is a public input part of a public hearing part of this.
I like time. Agenda item for.
Okay. Okay, so there is no agenda item on ETJ Morningstar. Okay. Robin, Douglas Davis, you would be the public hearing. Okay, Larry Johnson, public hearing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any items? Next item is items of community interest. Mr. Troy, you got any community interest for us?
Yeah, we got a couple dates coming up. First, I want to take a little bit of time to recognize Paula Castillo for her efforts in updating our roundabout on Chin Chapel and Crooked Hill. She kind of spearheaded that and did an outstanding job at that, and we're recognizing job for the town of Coffee Canyon. So I just wanted to recognize Paula for those efforts.
When we started this, this is actually somebody else that you will say. I promise Ron, I won't take it. So, when we started this in 2020, actually, I got a call from then council member, Ted Stranzik that said, "Hey, Paula, you want to help me work on the roundabout?" And I'm like, "Sure." And so Ted and I got a plan together. How long did we work on that? Months, right? I actually bought a protractor because we couldn't afford to pay anybody to design it. So I bought a protractor, drew a circle, and then put the plans in. And Ted and I worked on that so hard. And actually, you weren't a council member yet, but you kind of gave us some advice then too, Chase. But so really it's, this has been a long time coming, and I just want to thank Ted and actually Mayor Robertson for your support, because I have gotten over 200 social media messages about it, phone calls from towns all around, a lot of you guys sitting here. It's really made a difference. It looks beautiful. It's the north entrance to our town, and Troy, you helped too. So anyway, thank y'all. But Ted, thank you for starting all the trouble 4 years ago.
Please.
You know, an idea is just an idea until somebody comes along, picks up the ball and does it and develops it. And the person who did that is Paula. And she is the one to be commended more than anybody else on the great job that she's done. Thank you,
Good.
Paula. Job well done.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the balance of this agenda other than anything related to the public hearing and action item number 2. So that because Councilmember Johnson is going to recuse himself at that point. The audit presentation that we had for tonight was postponed due to weather. She couldn't get in from Wichita Falls. She was concerned about the thunderstorms. However, there is an agenda item on the consent. So you want to do it at the item? At the item?
Yep.
Okay. So there's no presentation by the auditor tonight. However, the Mayor Pro Tem will update us on the audit on that item. I'm going to hold the public hearing aside for right now. We'll go to staff report.
Yes, Mayor. So the staff report, if you guys have any questions, let me know. But I'll highlight a couple of things on this month on the 27th. We have our paper shredding day, so make sure that we hear at the town hall, as well as we're doing a trail cleanup with the equestrian group on that same day. It'll start at 9 o'clock, and then the paper shred will start at 8. So both of them will go into noon. So we'll have a busy day that day on Saturday. The Estates Drive Bridge, that's been on the radar for the county for a long time. We have an opportunity to meet with them this week to really look at how that potentially will work as far as how the contracts will work, who's going to build it, who's going to engineer it. So we're getting closer. Portions of it is funded, so we're going to nail that down. So we may be bringing an interlocal agreement back to the council here in the near future to look at all of those elements of that project. Special project administrator, Roger, who is our future chief. He's been going through a lot of training, teeing up what our badges and patches will look like. So he's been doing a lot of policy confirmation as well. Roger, do you have anything to add as far as things you've been working on?
Oh, really the only major product. Sorry about that. The only other major project that I've been working with some of the Tarrant County Community College guys and the local PDs, Northlake is going to be doing some active shooter training. And since I'm an instructor for a couple of those disciplines within it, I'm going to be working with them to not just get the training, but also push some of that training out to the local officers. So that's where we're currently in the process of building that up. So I'll be in and out doing some preliminary work with them as well.
Thank you. And then the fire department is present here today, the chief's here, their stakeholder meeting is, their monthly meetings on the 18th. They're also offering some CPR classes on the 13th. That will be located at Station 511. And then anything else you want to add?
Just, we got some, we work with the police department in the area to learn some active threat, active shooter training. So got to dive in. Just a couple things, I'll be brief, I think the long meeting tonight, so, yeah, gonna be doing some training, they call it alert training, it's active threat, active shooter training, we're working with the police departments. North Lake, I think it's been kind of taking the lead on that, so we're working with all that. If you know anything about that, it's kind of a joint response between the fire department and the police department. So that's one of the things we got that coming up in April. The big thing you're going to hear more information about the next couple of months is our signature event. We do a carry the load event in May. And so we'll be we'll be advertising about that. It's a big deal. And so, but other than that, there's a lot of good things going on. We had a budget workshop, our very first budget workshop. So they came up with some methodology on how they're going to do the budget as far as the contract. ESD2 is going to contract services with ESD1. So, so it had a lot of big successes. So other than that, I could go on and on, but I won't, but I'll take any questions for me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're gonna staff up.
Okay, we have, there is no council meeting next week on the 8th, so that may go to that. It is the eclipse night day, however. We are having a work session April 15th with planning and zoning. That's a Monday evening starting at 6 o'clock, I believe. So that will be with a work session with the planning and zoning. Also, for anyone that may be interested, on the 27th, I'll be there, is the National Daughters of the Resolution for the cemetery at Flower Mound at the Chin Chapel Cemetery. So that starts at 11 o'clock, I believe. Yeah, 11 to 11:30. So we will be there for that. Okay, next item is consent agenda. Any item on the consent agenda may be removed by any member of council for individual discussion or consideration. Council, anything to be removed? If not, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as stated.
I have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have a second? I have a second by Councilmember Andrews. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, motion carries. The next item is discussion consideration of taking action approving the 2021-2022 financial audit for the town of Copper Canyon. Like I said, the auditor is not here, so the Mayor Pro Tem is going to pick it up and tell us what he can.
Yeah. So thank you, Mayor. As the mayor said, the MWH group was not able to come tonight due to weather concerns. Long story short, our audit was clean. There were no weaknesses and there were no irregularities in the audit. We were completely aligned with generally, acceptable accounting principles for government. Our supplemental information was gap aligned, so everything's good. The only thing that came out of the audit that was of note was the capitalization policy. Right now, our town's policy, which is designed for the recording of property and equipment, is set for $1,000. So because of the inflation of pricing over the last several years, that threshold is very, very, very low to require the kind of administrative labor to record those as long-term assets or to be tracked for continual use and eventual disposal. So their recommendation, I think it's a good one, is to increase that capitalization threshold from $1,000 to $250 or $5,000. I think 5,000 is a more reasonable number. So that was the only comment that came out of the audit. And other than that, it was fantastic. And I think it was indicative of, consistent findings that we've had over the years.
Thanks, sir. Ted, you had a comment on audit?
One question.
Go up here for you.
There's several exclusions in there that have to do with internal controls and compliance. And at the end of it is a nice blank sheet of paper that says just that, internal controls and compliance, and no comments. We know we had a problem with ESD1 on controls and compliance. And I'd like to know why there's exclusions here or educate me on what and why the auditors are kind of dancing around that.
The simple answer is that they came and looked at our controls and they thought that they were adequate. So they looked at all the things that are going on in the back office here and what our procedures were and thought they were very adequate for the kinds of work that we're doing to administer financials in a proper, responsible and judiciously or fiduciary responsible manner. The fact that there were no comments about the internal audit controls was a good thing. Generally, when auditors have a blank sheet of paper on their response, that's a good thing. So you don't really want a whole lot of commentary about it, but the long story short was they thought we had very good controls. And I think when they come into their presentation next, you can ask them about the nuances about their experience, but it was a good report card. It was like going to a final, going to a health exam and getting a clean bill of record out of it. So
Well, I thought the report was exceptional.
thanks. Yeah, I think they did a nice job.
Very good job. Thank you.
Okay, to entertain a motion, is there any question from council? I'm sorry. Any questions on the audit? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion. We approve the 2021-2022 financial audit for the town of Falcon County.
No motion by the mayor pro tem, is there a second?
No second.
Second by Councilman Liebert, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, motion carries. All right, now I'm going to go to the public hearing. I have to ask Councilmember Johnson to please step down and have a seat in the audience. I'm going to hold two public hearings tonight. The town council will conduct a public hearing for the purpose of a hearing of any and all comments and considerations and recommendations from the Copper County Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the Jernigan Estates Development Plan. Period.
Mayor and council, just for the benefit of the citizens, there's two components to the issues surrounding Jernigan Estates. One is the zoning issue as development plan, that's zoning. Once the development plan is reviewed by the council and you take a vote on that, then we would move to the plat if it's warranted.
So I'll hold
Two items in one posted.
So we will hold a public hearing for the development plat, for the preliminary plat till after a vote's taken on the development plan. Okay, public hearing, is anyone may speak in favor or opposition? Again, former council members Franzi. What you calling me?
Ted Stransik, 1020 North Berry Trail Court. It's kind of difficult to talk about just the development plan, knowing full well that you're rolling into a preliminary plan or the preliminary plat, I should say. But looking at the development only for right now, there seems to have been an awful lot of start-stop. There's been fill dirt added. There's been a lot of digging going around the construction site. And I don't think the process has been controlled the way it should be and the way our ordinances call it out to be. And there shouldn't be one piece of dirt moved until all of the ordinance procedures have been complied with, either yay or nay. And I think I'll just leave it at that for right now and remain the rest of the comments for my
Okay.
preliminary.
Robin Douglas Davis. And you can speak on the whole process, so don't feel compelled to speak on the development.
If they want to talk about it, if we get to the point and they want to say more when we get to the plat.
We'll come back to you.
So I'm Robin Douglas Davis, 581 Jernigan. Our property is adjacent to this development property, just on the north. We are not opposed to the development. Our personal philosophy is it's your property. You can do what you want as long as you don't negatively affect your neighbor. And that's where the issue comes in. I have not spoken to Mr. Candidate outside the confines of meetings, and there was a comment made previously at the planning and zoning, and that was untrue. We have not spoken outside the confines of the meeting and haven't spoken directly to each other. I have spoken to Paul. Kelly and I spoke to Paul. He seemed willing to do the right thing, and we definitely appreciate that. We have engaged a civil engineer to come and review the plans and how to make this situation right, because currently it isn't right. Currently, there are two ponds, one on Paul's property and one on our property. They are separated by a good probably 150, 200 feet at least. Paul's pond fills up, overflows out into his pasture, correspondingly then overflows under the fence and covers about a half an acre to 3/4 of an acre of our property. It is 18 to 24 inches deep. If you look at the drawing there, it doesn't specify what the elevation is. No one has been on our property to elevate it. Darren has been super nice, came over and looked, but no one has gotten the elevation to see. It doesn't even show where our pond is. It doesn't show the elevations, the depth, nothing. We also have spoken to attorney about the trespass of water. There are some errors on that drawing. There is no weir where the water exits from our property to Larry's property. It shows a weir, but there is no weir there. There's no elevation. So our request would be that the water from the south, from that development, from Paul's property, stay on Paul's property. We are happy to keep all our water coming from the north on our property. But we shouldn't have our pasture overrun with water from somebody else's property, because it is not okay to use someone else's land for your retention pond. That's not okay. If you want to make a retention pond on your property, that's fine, but you can't do it on someone else's land. That's not okay.
Well, I have a question. Is that property that's flood, that goes underwater, is it developable? I mean, is it not in a floodplain? It could be, it could be built on if you ever chose to. Okay, thank you. Next person, Larry Johnson.
Hi, Larry Johnson, 535 Jernigan Road. My property lies to the west of the proposed development. And let me go back to January when there was the first P&Z session. I similar to the Davises, I made the point at that time, I am not opposed to somebody developing their property. Just don't do harm to those who are going to feel the effect of that. And I'm going to walk through just a series of things that I think still are open, still need to be addressed. One, again, since January, we've been talking about accuracy of maps and plats. We once again have in our materials a fantasy map, as Robin pointed out. That map that's in here doesn't even come close to reflecting what the amount of water is and what's covered. And it goes well into their property. I think the other thing is the looking at, and again, this has really not been addressed. Oh, it's mathematical computation. 50% of the surface area of the 12 acres will be hard surface. That is currently the land that is absorbing the water. As Ted pointed out, the first retention pond has disappeared. So you now have 50% of surface area being hard surfaced. You have a retention pond that functioned and served its purpose. It's gone. I think in terms of the where the water goes, Robin mentioned a weir. I see on the latest couple of drawings, there is a very substantial weir that is planned and is to dump directly onto my property. Well, it's kind of interesting. On the one hand, we've been told, oh, no, we're going to remediate this and the water will be retained in the new and improved pond. Well, if that's the case, why are you constructing a monster weir spillway dumping right onto my property? Doesn't make any sense. Let's go to the next one, the drainage ditch hazards. It's not clear whether these are concrete, whether they're dirt, or what. But presumably there are going to be houses and presumably there will be some number of children that are going to be on these properties. Depending, even now, there is in a 3 to 6 inch rain event, there's a serious problem with water running. Children are going to be attracted to open ditches. And again, I don't know if this is concrete, if it's riprap or what it is. But that water is going to go fast and it's going to go down to a big pond. The other item, I've raised this and it's been received with some derision. The road that I purchased, in order to continue to receive my ag exemption on that, the county's been very clear with me, the tax assessor, you need to have cows on that and you need to show us during the year. I've had a stock fence on that property line for 30 years. So on the north side of that road and on the east side, those are stock fences. They're expensive. Anybody who's put pipe and cable fence in knows that. I promise you, if there is not something done to address that, you're going to have people up here bitching and moaning because my calves, my heifers, my cows got in their backyard and in their pool. I didn't ask for this, but it will happen. And if anybody's dealt with a heifer or a cow, they may be gentle, but let me tell you, they can hurt you big time. And again, there will be kids out there. Not been addressed. One of the mysteries of this project, next point, is the easement. And this is really curious from a legal standpoint. This project works because there's a private easement allowing the water into the pond. Has anybody sitting up here reviewed the terms of that easement? Because what I had heard in the prior meeting was that easement would ultimately end up with the homeowners association. So essentially, what is going to happen is you're going to get 5 or 6 unlucky homeowners bearing the liability that goes with that easement, that water. And you say, oh, well, what's the deal? Well, again, we had a back and forth. Is the big pond, is it spring fed? Without any evidence or proof, no, it's not spring fed. Okay, well, if it's not spring fed, then where are the aerators so that we don't end up with the ultimate mosquito nest in that part of Copper Canyon? If we need aerators, who provides them? And I can tell you from experience, you got to get an electric meter. You've got to run the power. You've got to maintain it. And one thing that is going to be unique in the conversion of this pond, the first 3 to 5 years, major silting is going to take place. Okay, so let's take it year 5 to 10. This thing fills up with silt. Who's going to bear the cost of dredging this thing? So again, I don't know if any of this is addressed, if anybody has seen it, but in effect, the town approving this will be considered a part of any approval of that. The town is going to be a party to it. And remember something, what the Davises are dealing with and what the Johnsons are potentially going to deal with is we will have a situation where we get to suffer the consequence of this with no recourse. Now, I can tell you, there will be recourse if these things are not addressed. And the good news is, I think they can be addressed. It's going to take time and it's going to take money. And I believe it can be done. Two other sensitive issues here. Transparency. I don't know how much the town has looked at what has happened in another development in this town. And I'm referring to the Copper Creek development. And also the Boots development where development plans were put in place and there was not financial wherewithal to execute those. So I would hope we do a thorough job and understand who is assuming the liabilities here. And are the parties that are assuming the liability, do they have the financial wherewithal to satisfy whatever liabilities? But that's it. I would hope the council would take these points under consideration. I think they're serious. And again, this is a unique development, but I think people working together, I think there's a path forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Stradley, could I encourage you to finish your comments? I mean, roll into the next, if you're welcome.
One of the issues that when I read through the data, and there's some exceptionally good data here, without a doubt. The Poindexter study comes up. And it's not referred to as the Copper Canyon study, it's referred to as the TNP study. And that's not correct. Copper Canyon owns all of that data. Now, was the data from our survey and our study used by the developer? Was it? Chris,
Yes.
who gave permission for that data to be used?
Yeah, that's not.
Citizens council.
Yeah, this is not a question. This is not a, make your comments. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The issue to me is liability. And if you're going to give out what I consider to be private data to a developer, of which we paid $150,000 to develop, it's our data. If someone else is going to use it, the least we can get out of this is some type of very constructive hold harmless agreement. Because when you read the CYA section in this document, the reference is again, depending on our data. Wait a minute. It's their data, not mine. If it's going to be our data and they're going to use it, we should A, be indemnified, and B, probably compensated. And at this point, there's so many questions about the porosity of the soil, what they're going to do with this, with some of the land as it's being developed. What is the actual construction of this detention pond and its exits to other properties? Again, it's liability, liability, liability. And I think we need to say, wait a minute, let's take a look at this, get legal to get involved to make sure that all parties are protected. I'm not against the development, but at this point in time, there seems to be an awful lot of issues that are floating out there and they're not being resolved, and they need to be resolved. I could go into several other factors about the construction, but I think Larry covered them reasonably well. But they're really looking at the drawings, looking at the checklist. All of that stuff seems to have been glossed over. The drawings aren't annotated correctly. The checklist was just kind of, yeah, fill in the blanks and that's it. There should be some vetting going on with reference to any checklist that the town has that developers use. It's our checklist, but we should certainly vet it when it's all done, not just, oh yeah, he filled it out, so I guess it's okay. In the end, I think that caution is advised for us to proceed in this particular program. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else to speak in the public hearing or in favor or opposition? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on the development plan and we'll go to the agenda item. At this point, I would ask that the applicant come up and if you have a presentation. If not, I'll go to council. This discussion and consideration of taking action regarding the recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the Jernigan Estates development plan, period.
Darren Andrews with McAdams. So in regards to the development plan, do you and me hold off because a lot of this stuff is in regards to the engineering?
Yeah, right now we're focusing on the development plan. So that's council, if not, council may have some questions for you.
Okay. No, if anybody has any questions on the development plan, I mean, I think some of the points that were brought up are more engineering wise than they were development plan. So if anybody has any questions on the development plan, I'd be happy to answer.
Councilman, I'll start with Councilmember Andrews. You have any questions of the develop either Chris or him regarding the development plan? No.
Well, I'm just thinking how we word this.
Well, I can come back to you.
Okay, do that.
Councilmember Garcia.
Yeah, come back to me.
Mayor, I'm still getting my thoughts together, so feel free to go down the line and.
Well, my only comment is the council is compelled to approve a development plan if, I use the word if, meets all, has checked all the boxes and meets all the conditions. However, we are on a development plan, if there is any questions, if there is any concerns, we are not compelled to approve it. So the council has.
One of the things, Mayor, that I want to point out to you is this is part of the zoning ordinance, the development plan, the plat. is really something that's down the road, assuming that the development plan. One of the things that both Mr. Johnson, Mr. Strenzig and Robin have all brought up is the fact that they think that the drainage, which is really a plating issue, requires a solution that requires not just this property owner, but other property owners to join in. And those agreements, I will report to you, are not in place yet. So that may have an impact on the development plan itself, because it requires action outside of this development. And it would be appropriate in planning, it's not appropriate now.
I was just gonna say what Bob said. Fundamentally, that there are third-party agreements that need to be put in place, I think, before this plat can be in a self-contained manner approved. Because it's really not self-contained, because there are effects to adjacent properties. And we have an obligation not to encumber.
Councilmember Leader, comments?
Yeah, just to follow up with him. It appears as if they're utilizing not just the Sings, but also the Davis property in this proposal, so. And they've talked about isolating that out, that obviously would change your designs, I would imagine, considerably. With regards to engineering, so it's pretty hard to say this will work for us. At this point.
Chris, what's your position on, I mean, do you feel that this is 100% meeting your requirements, the freeboard is not or isn't being met, and do you agree 100% with it or disagree with it?
So that is one of the questions that I think is still outstanding is the drainage and how it impacts the adjacent property, not Paul's, but Poppins property. And then what's going to happen with that berm, if there's going to be a berm, and then if not, as your storm events go across the property line, how that's going to be addressed, how's that going to be ensured to be maintained long term?
Any comments of, I mean, there's
Well-
this concern on our side versus your perspective.
Again, in regards to apart from the zoning, I mean, I really take that as being an engineering type question because that's where we're going to get into the hydrology, specific elevations that have been taken out there on the site.
Yeah, but if we allow for a development plat to go through, it automatically takes us right into the preliminary plat. So we're going into the next phase, but if there's still a level of uncomfort to get to the preliminary plat, we need to probably solve these questions before we get there.
From a development standpoint, the question is there enough capacity on the property within the four corners of the development? Or does there require, in order to develop this plan as presented as a development plan, require an agreement with adjacent property owners? That's all I need to hear from a legal standpoint, yes or no, because that's going to impact what you and how you may want to exercise your discretion, because we've got to have those agreements. I don't see any way around it. Not an engineer, but based on what I've learned, we need that question answered. Is there a requirement that we have agreements with adjacent property?
Mr. Candidate, I heard you're the developer. Would you come to the podium, please, if you have key say?
Okay.
I just have a couple of questions about what's being said. So, the adjacent property to the development is Paul. He is the adjacent property to the development. He's granted us the easement and pond, and you know, their property's flooding, just like they're describing right now before we touch it, and we're digging the pond 3 times larger than what the town requires for them. You know, both neighbors to each side of the pond, and we're also slowing the water down. We're holding it and putting it out of the pond slower. So, I mean, our only job is to have the agreement with the adjacent property owner, and we do, and you guys have a copy of it, and it's been filed with county. It's maintenance and it's everything. I don't know if you guys have a copy of it. Larry acts
No,
like,
no, don't. Your comments are here.
Larry acts like he hadn't seen it, so I'm just throwing it out there if he hadn't seen it. We did get it filed in the agreement. And our job, bringing both these to you, the plan and the plat, is to work on our space, okay? And not do anything over there. I mean, as long as we don't make it worse, that's our threshold. That's our performance. And I think, you know, our intent is to make it better. When we dug the pond 3 times larger than what's required by the town to meet y'all's requirements, and we slowed the water down. And it ain't if, from what I understand, the numbers, we meet 100% full freeboard now. It's not if we do this, and our intent was to bring this without that berm between the 2 properties, because we believe in all the data that's available to us that will do her harm when that water needs to come back off the property. And that drainage pattern has been established for well over 20 years. So I think it takes a lot more than what we're doing to change that drainage pattern. So we're trying to stay in our development. We have the adjacent property owner. We have our agreement in place, and we choose not to do anything on either property. So I don't understand where that came from.
Okay. Council, you have any questions of the developer of Mr. Kennedy?
I have some concern about.
Robert, let me get to this and then I'll ask you to come back up. Okay. So let me work through all this. Okay, sir.
Looking at the plan, I noticed that the property, it's kind of a weird duck if you look at it. You're putting water on somebody else's property off of this property and adjoining property coming down. You did make the pond larger in the sense of depth wise. You put in a weir at, I believe,
So 37 foot wide, maybe
610 or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, but my point is though, when this pond fills up, it goes over onto the adjacent north property. There's a dam there, but it becomes one big pond, not 2 ponds as it is now. When this floods and raises the elevation, it goes over the dam.
And it does that now, and it has for 20 or 25 years.
Okay, but we're going to add more water to that because you've got all the hard surfaces of the buildings, roads, sidewalks, everything. So you're gonna have more water. I'm not a hydrologist, but I'm common sense. But I think if you look at it, there needs to be some kind of agreement between Paul, whoever's gonna own this pond.
He does.
Okay, but you're.
He
taking
owns the
water
property.
from your property.
It's
You know,
in his
he
back.
give you permission. Do you have that in writing?
I do, and it's filed with county. You guys have a copy of it since last Wednesday.
But anyway, that's my concern.
Bob, can you answer?
Maybe
that?
I'm getting
The only
rabbit.
easement I've seen is an easement from Mr. Singh to a corporation who is not a party to this.
Okay.
That's all I've got. And that doesn't do it.
So how that goes,
That doesn't do it for me.
he is a party, because if you look at who owns the corporation, Paul owns it. So that's business. Paul's here tonight, and so is our hydrologist.
Doesn't say who's gonna pay for it, how that it's gonna operate. There needs to be an agreement. Easement is not enough. That just says I have the right that I can put the water in there, but it has nothing as to who's gonna keep it dredged, who's gonna operate it, who's gonna maintain it, etc.
It's the HOA, which will be assigned when there is an HOA, you know, and just so you know, the history of the back of these corners of the property, there's gonna be no development down there. It's been, I'm not putting water, that's where the water goes. I'm not changing the course of water as it's been forever and ever. So, and we're slowing the stuff down through our ditches. We're putting it in a pond that's 3 times the size, and we're getting 1 foot freeboard, and Paula's property's up for sale, and it's gonna be developed. you know, it'll be in here. And if we put a wall up there, it's gonna land like them. And we just feel like we're doing her more harm in her request than good. And like I said, our hydrologist can speak to the project, how it is. She's here. And Paul's here, and it's his property. He's been there. He's gonna live there. It's his backyard. It's his cow pasture. It's all that low land back that they can't do anything because it's kind of like back behind our house where the creek is. It's that. There's just not gonna be anything back there. All their houses are all built and they're way far away from where this is gonna be. You know, it's
Let me go back to council here. Councilman Castillo, you've been trying to get.
Well, Mayor, I've been looking at this since we first got a hold of it, and I have quite a few questions that I'd like to ask, only because this particular project is unlike anything else that we've had to deal with in the recent past, at least not while I've been sitting up here. And I think that it might be beneficial for us to go over some things that have been brought up by Mr. Johnson, the Davises, Mr. Stranzik. And I think that a lot of assumptions are being made of things that are not exactly in evidence, mostly because nobody's ever asked. I still am not totally clear on the issue of ownership of these properties. Now, currently, Mr. Singh owns the projected development property under an LLC, and he owns his property on his own, correct? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So the plan is at some point, he's going to sell the 13 acres or plus or minus for the Jernigan development to you. Is that correct?
No, he is going to sell the lots individually. We are partners. I'm developing.
Oh, so he's going to sell the properties, not
Yes, sir.
you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so see, making assumptions that are not in evidence. The other issue comes to tank 2, which is a large tank, which is the big question mark in everybody's mind. That tank will continue residing after all the lots are sold with you, sir, correct? All right. Now I noticed it was marked in the documents that this is a private easement. Has that easement been, first of all, created and then filed with the state or sanctioned or?
It has, and you know, the easement says who's going to maintenance it. It's on Paul's property. And assignee and as successors, it goes with the property. It's maintained by the HOA. It has limitations on access to Paul's property because, you know, it's at the end of the road. The box culvert's come out and across his cow pasture, that grass slows down the water. It goes into there, and that's his private property. So he put a bunch of stuff in there about people jumping fences and fishing, swimming, accessing the property. The HOA's got to give him, you know, notice to come in his backyard. I think he requested 72 hours unless it's an emergency situation. But, you know, we don't have a little keyway. We've got a like almost 40-foot wide weir. So it would take a yacht to stop the water from going over that weir. You know, it wouldn't be just a log or something. So
Yeah, right now I'm not as concerned with the,
it also has aerators at his expense or the property's expense. It has a performa on maintenance and what he's supposed to take. I don't know why y'all don't have a copy. We got it to you last Wednesday. Filed.
oh, all right, so you help clarify something. I don't even want to get into the water issue just because that's not part of this discussion. As far as the maintenance, you indicated that this document assigns the responsibility of the maintenance to the HOA.
Yes, sir.
But it's on someone else's land, whether it's Mr. Singh or if
And
he's
it
out,
happens,
it'll be
these
some
county
future
easements are
development.
ground, yeah, and in the event of a sale, it goes along with the sale.
Well, to Mr. Johnson's point, and I think he brings up a very valid point. As far as liability issues in terms of, God forbid, what he said, some child is playing during a big rainstorm, gets in one of those concrete culverts, ends up in the tank. I can assure you that there's going to be a line of lawyers with everybody pointing at everybody else because you've got one development HOA run and you've got this water feature that really is, its design is for this development that's on on a third party's property that theoretically they assume all the liability for, or the HOA has it, I don't know. But,
See, and that's the HOA's responsibility, like, you know, the HOA and one of my other communities, I have insurance for ponds. I mean, I had a friend that his daughter drowned in the pool. I mean, it's something I take super, super serious. And we have insurance for that. You know, and any HOA that would have that liability would want to spend a couple $1,000s a year to have that insurance.
well, the bottom line to me is that,
And that's private property. So we all have ponds at our house. We all have creeks that run through. We all have culverts. So that could happen at anybody's house. I mean, I got Poindexter runs through my backyard.
right.
I know how dangerous it is. And I've got kids over playing all the time and we got them all around us. So it's not a single property threat, something new to the town. I mean, we live in the country. So, I mean, there's bigger culverts like over on Ranch Road and other places that, you know, I don't know whether they attract kids or not, but I mean, if you have that, you back on point.
Right. Well, the bottom line, Mayor, is that from my perspective, this development and the development plan it's not self-contained. It can't stand on its own because everything relies on a tank that's being dug deeper, weirs installed, of which, by the way, I've never been advised. When is this going to be built? Is it going to be built before the development starts, in the middle, or after? We've never been advised on when this tank, which is going to be an integral part
It'll be
to
the
whole
first
drainage
part.
issue.
It'll be the first part because it's got 12,000 yards of dirt coming out of it. So that dirt's gonna need to be repurposed and all the grading done in the neighborhood. So it'll be right out of the chute, pretty much.
All right. Well, to me, the issue of a development plan that inherently requires third-party personnel is just not something that I think is in the best interest of the town. And I mean, that really just addresses the questions I have, Mayor, but when you're ready, I do have a motion I'd like to make it when we're done.
I don't, there's, Bob, anything? Okay. Sounds good. Council members. Mayor Pro Tem.
I mean, I appreciate you clarifying some of the information and the questions that we have. For me, it's not it's not a drainage problem as much as that's a math problem, in my opinion. I mean, that's solvable. To me, when I look at the documentation, it looks like there's multi-parties outside of the context of this development involved in here that should be addressed. And to be honest with you, it sounds to me like it's a workable solution. I just think you ought to go through that step to make sure that that's workable.
We've tried several times and like I said, what they've asked for is like, I mean, it's like Santa's coming to town, here's a Christmas list. I mean, and we don't want to work on their property and change their stuff over there because it works. We've designed it to work in harmony with what's there right now. And, you know, I don't know what the neighbor does, but for them to suggest a dirt wall without consulting anybody, I mean, it just doesn't mean it's the best thing. We've looked at it. Like I said, our hydrologist is here and this is my lead engineer. So, I mean, any questions you have can be answered and the homeowner's here and I'm here. And
So
we've been here.
My comment to you, and again, I'm not taking a side on this, is that there probably needs to be some more discussion with our attorney and our town engineer and our town secretary to figure out what those hoops are that we want to close and just go down the path and get them done. I think this is a math problem. It's not impossible to solve.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be arduous to get to the bottom of.
Yeah, is
So
the
I just
town
don't
gonna
want
make me
this
work on
to
their
be-
property? I mean, is that what the town's telling me? Are y'all suggesting that I go do work on their property? Is that,
We're not suggesting anything.
all right?
Okay.
It just, okay.
I think it's a collaboration that is required here.
Let me,
Councilmember Lieber, any comments? Okay, Robin, did you have comments in regards, could you come up to the podium and change places with them so I can?
can I ask a quick question to Chris? Real
Okay,
quick. So in regards to this, well, I know that there's two ponds, depending on what time of year you're looking at it. Hydraulically speaking is one pond because they're interconnected. Chris, would you say that really that would be considered an established drainage pattern by this time?
I think that's up to the mayor, just like you fill in the existing pond wall, it's a stock tank. People fill in stock tanks all the time when they develop, so I think one of the questions that needs to be answered is if Robin's property develops. And she gets rid of her portion of that tank. How is your property being met? Do you still have enough, if there's a berm there, to still maintain the 100-year, maintain all that?
Well, I guess the concern is because, yes. But if we add that berm right now, it will make this potential for flooding on her property will be worse than what it is now.
Let me, sorry, I didn't know this was gonna go that far. Okay, let me get Robin's comments real quick. Okay. Let me get Robin's comments real quick. Okay. I want to hear from everybody.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So unless Larry made some agreement since Thursday that I don't know about, or Friday, we have not made an agreement with anyone. We've not signed anything. We've not seen anything. We've had some conversations. We went over to Paul's house and looked at the drawings, but we have not agreed to anything. So I don't know where the discussion of the agreement's coming from because we haven't made one. And to my knowledge, Larry hasn't made one either.
Attorney.
That's, my comment was to make sure, I've seen an easement, but that's not a development agreement. Who's putting in what, where, when, how, who's gonna pay for it, who's gonna maintain it, how is it financed? That should be in these agreements.
All written in.
That you gentlemen have referred to up here that are not done yet, that causes me to stay up at night.
So in your professional opinion, this is not meeting checking all the boxes of our development.
Well, you have discretion. This is development plan and zoning. And if the only way this operates as a development for these lots with this zoning is to have that drainage system, we do not have the agreements in place to move forward.
Okay. No other comments? Councilmember Castillo.
Well, Mayor, just one thing I'd like to add, because I really want to emphasize that, in my opinion, a development that relies on agreements with third parties, of which you have no idea what's going to happen in the future, is setting this town up to make errors. And based on the presented development plan, which requires third-party agreement that is not in place and that we have not seen, I move we deny this development plan.
Okay. So I have a motion to deny. Is there a second to deny?
I'll second.
So I have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. I have a second by the Mayor Pro Tem to deny. All in favor to deny?
Aye.
Unanimous motion carries to deny. Preliminary plat now becomes moot point, so there will not be a public input on the preliminary plat, and also the discussion action item also becomes a moot point, so there will not be on item 3 to I'm on item 2 to get into the preliminary plat. Next item is discussion and consideration taking action regarding an ordinance 24-01 of amending the code of ordinances of general provisions of Article 1.03 of the Town Council Division 2 of the Meeting and Rules and Procedures by reserving section 1.03.053-103.59 and by adding Division 3 and adopting Financial Advisory Committee. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, is this your?
It's kind of a mouthful.
Yeah.
Yeah, the long story short on this is that we want to put together a financial advisory committee for the town so that there is a group of collaboration with citizens, council members, and other parties in government, i.e. staff, to provide counsel to the mayor and the council on financial planning, budget, audit, tools that we use. So there's a lot more complication in the management and finance than there has been in the past. I think AI is going to complicate that. And it's going to make it a lot better in a lot of ways, but I think it's going to require a stronger collaboration of different skills to make sure the town's getting the best counsel in doing so. So we're putting this advisory committee together. I've shingled this myself over many, many years. And at the end of the day, I think we need to get a little bit more backup and third parties if something happens.
We have money.
Yeah,
We didn't have any money, so.
I know. That's why I shoestrained it.
Yes.
But the reality is we will have 2 citizens in the town selected for this. So anybody who's interested in this is, we're welcome. We're going to advertise this. But we will have the town secretary and the town administrator as a part of this, as well as myself and another council member. So that's what this is effectively doing. It's not going to be deciding or making policy on anything. All this committee will do is provide counsel and advice and recommendations when asked by the council and the mayor.
Sounds good. Council, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Hill. Is there any consideration going to be given to implement some sort of not a requirement, but for the volunteers to have some working knowledge of whether it be finance or CPA work or accounting, or is there going to be anything to where there's basically a level of knowledge that will go toward benefiting?
We certainly hope that people will have that background, but if we only get one volunteer, we're gonna have to take what we get. So if it's the person that's an AI expert but doesn't know anything about finance, they'll still be helpful because we have other people in the committee that'll be able to balance some of those skills. But we'll definitely hope that we have more choices than slots.
Okay.
And there'll also be some online training that'll be required as it relates to government finance as well.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, there's more to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to approve?
I make a motion, we approve.
Shall I make the motion?
Yes.
All right. I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 24-001, amending the code of ordinances in the general provisions, article 1.03, town council division 2 meetings and rules of procedure by reserving sections 103.053 to 103.59, and by adding a division 3 and adopting financial advisory committee, providing a savings clause, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and providing for an effective date.
I have a motion by the mayor pro tem. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by the deputy mayor pro tem. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, motion carries. Gentlemen, before I close out and adjourn, if you will get with our town engineer, our town attorney, and we will make our town attorney available to your here anytime it works for him. And town administrator to work about what the concerns of this council is. We will be happy to do that. We're not here to, we feel there's an answer. But as the spokesman, Mr. Johnson, and Mayor Pro Tem has said, that there's a solution. This council right now is not comfortable with the third party agreement. We don't feel that it's properly executed. We don't, and we work under the advice of our town attorney, and we don't make snap decisions. So I'll allow a simple statement. Yes, sir. But you need to, if you would, don't mind.
Yeah, and I pointed this out to Troy. That was a draft of the third party that we brought. And I think Sheila had said something to my girl, and I was at a funeral, and I think she said that's gonna have to be filed. So she went and filed it. And it was there for y'all to critique or whatever, but I was at a funeral and I texted her and she said it's already done. So, I mean, it wasn't like, we expected y'all to say something, but something that she said, she just went and filed it, thought she was doing the right thing for me.
We're limited on how much time, what we get to see. And
Yeah. So, and we kind of took that initiative on that just to get it going last time, go ahead and make the agreement. So it was here for this meeting. So
that's it. Yeah. Just if you will we will make ourselves available to get this worked out.
Right.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
But we need to work out some of these questions before we affect downstream people flooding and create more problems and be sure that everything legally is all handled. With that, anything to be on the next agenda? Hearing none, time being 8:05, I'd take a motion to adjourn. I have a motion by Councilmember Andrews. I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Larry? Aye. Aye.